Okay, so this is the second video in which I'm looking at making a small charm or key fob based on a letter. That's the D that I showed you in the start of the first video, and the corresponding mold that I used to create that. So it's a slightly different one, there's slightly different font, but effectively that's ready for me to drill the hole in, break out the metal from the mold, and cut off the sprue, and then finish cleaning up. Anyway, what I've got here from the previous video are two B's and two Z's. I did this because I found out that the risers I put in, these small little chimneys for the air to escape, based upon the thickness of the lines, it either did a thin line on the laser cutter or a thicker line. So check out the previous video just to have the clarity of that explained. What I want to do now is get the molds ready for casting. I'm going to go ahead and cast them out of camera shot and then show you what we get. So let's have a look. I've got some backing plates here. Two are 3mm modeling card and two are MDF. They've all been cut to size on a laser cutter. These have been used previously, as you can see. Looks like these have not. Now, you could just use card for both backing plates, front and back. So each of these is going to have, in fact, I'm only going to do the two molds here, which have got the thicker runners and risers. I'll just do that. I'm not going to worry about those, so I'll push those out of the way. You need to have a backing plate for the back and a backing plate for the front. But of course, we can see here that with this Z, we've got a situation whereby we need to put in this small little spacer here, so the pewter flows to this side of the Z, the top corner of the Z, and this bottom little serif of the Z. Now, amongst all my movements, I'd lost the actual Z, so there it is. So what I want to quickly do now is show you how I place this in the right position on my backing plate. Now, I'm not going to use the MDF on the back of this. I'm going to use a piece of card, and this is a little bit rough, but it's going to be fine because I'm going to polish up the pewter in the mold once it's been cast. So let's have a see. I'm going to place this on top of the backing plate. Now, these should be exactly the same size, 70mm in width, 100 in height, and that's why it's important to get these measurements correct, because now I can just feel that with my fingers and make sure it all aligns, which it does. And I want to pop this in the right place, which goes like that. That's how I want it. Okay, so let's have a see. I'm going to get some glue here, some PVA glue, little spatula. I'm just going to put, making sure I get the right way around here, a little bit of glue on here. Now, this is a bit tricky because I want the glue obviously to stick this down onto the card backing plate, but I don't want the glue to smear and hold the Z in place at the same time. So here we go. I've got that in position, and being so thin, it's quite fiddly. So let's just place that in there. Now, again, I need to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned, just how I want it. I can see the glue there is smearing out, so I'm just going to, well, if I had a paper towel it'd be helpful, wouldn't it, but my fingers are going to have to do for now. And then what I'm going to have to do now is try and remove the Z and but leave this in position. So actually this is quite handy in this case, because what I can do, I think, is just pull that out of the way, and I should be able to lift that out. Now, if I place this back on again, that is now looking perfect. I am liking that a lot. Okay, so again, just with my fingers, I'm going to hold that in position. I'm going to use this MDF backing plate on the other side. This is slightly oversized here. This is to do with the jig that I have for Mark Solid spray laser engraving, but it's the cutout from making this jig, so I don't want to waste it. I'm going to use it. Okay, so that's looking great. Put it together. Bulldog clips. Two more. Okay, this is my well. This is closer to the edge. If I look on 2D design, this is my Z. The well is closer to the edge. The runner is further from the edge. So this is where I'm going to be pouring in my pewter. So this part of the mold wants to go into my pewter casting machine first. So I'm going to fold those arms back. I'm going to leave those arms out, and it means now with protective gloves, when I do the pewter casting, I can place that under the pewter casting machine, molten metal can pour into the well, overflow down the runner into the cavity. The air is going to escape through those risers. I can actually see the risers here and here. There's tiny little holes there. That's looking perfect. I'm really happy. Let's just do the B as well. This is going to be a slightly different process because I've got these two counters that I've got to put in place. So let's have a look. I'm going to get another piece of card here. That feels fine. I'm going to place that here. Now then, let's just punch the B out. Good, that's coming nicely. Magic, there it is. Okay, let's push out those little counters. Now that one doesn't seem to have been laser cut correctly. No, it's fine. There we go. Now I've got to make sure I get these the right way around, of course. So that one went there, and that one went there. Is that correct? Am I right? I don't want to force it. Okay, yeah. So what I might do now is just put a little bit of pencil lines on there. I should have really put a little arrow perhaps, shouldn't I, sort of pointing up. Anyway, there you go. Now, I'm thinking here if I could actually put a little bit of glue while they're still in the B, but not get the glue onto the actual B itself. Okay, now, let's put this back in place. Push in the B. That looks good. Now, can I remove the mold? And then now I've got to remove the B. Now this is going to be tricky because I don't want these counters to move. So I'm going to have to just very carefully pull this away. And I'm moving my pencil from side to side there. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Like it. Okay, that's looking great. Again, just use my fingers here because all these molds are 70 by 100, so I can just use my sense of touch there to make sure they align. And the same with this. Again, the top won't quite align because of this little ridge on the MDF, but the sides and the bottom are fine. I can just hold it down against the cutting mat there. Bulldog clip. Same on the sides. 1, 2. Again, here's my well. So it's actually like this inside. The well is on the left, is closer to the edge of the mold compared to the runner. So it's closer here on this side. So I'm going to fold these arms back. That's now ready to go. So there's my B, there's my Z. I'm expecting to see when I've cast this a B and the right way around there, and a Z. I'm going to go ahead and cast this now. Pause the video and I'll come back when it's done. So I've cast the pewter in the molds. I've left it to set for about 10 minutes. That's normally enough. Here they are. Now this one here, this one didn't seem to cast quite so well. In fact, you can see there seems to be like two separate blobs of pewter there, and what happened was when I poured the pewter into the well, it looked like it started to fill up to the top, but then I realized there was still a bit of a gap in there, so I had to pour a bit more pewter in a few seconds later, and the first pewter pouring had already cooled down, so that's why it's a bit strange. So it's going to be interesting to see if this one has worked, and it seemed to fill very fast as well, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to open the one that I think was more successful first, and I don't know if this is the B or the Z. It's going to be a surprise. Here we go. I'm going to take off the bulldog clips. Okay, I had the MDF on the top. I'm going to pull it away. Yeah, and voila. So it hasn't actually worked. And the reason why I believe this hasn't worked is because the opening into the cavity for my B was not big enough, and I'm probably expecting to have the same problem here with the Z. So let's have a look there as well. You can see there the problem. Interestingly, I think because the pewter hasn't actually impacted with the can I get it out there? With the cavity, if I'm very, very careful, I might be able to take out, I'm trying to push that out without damaging the card. Yeah, there we are. I think I can just go ahead and recast that. So that's actually exactly what I'm going to do. But before I do, I'm going to get an X-Acto blade and open that up a little bit. Alternatively, of course, I could come to my CAD file over here. Let's just zoom in here. I could select this runner, go to Start Edit, Step Block, and I could open up that across to there. So that would be another way of fixing that. But let's have a see. Let's open this one up. This therefore is going to be the Z. So this is the one I'm less convinced by, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this one's absolutely fine. Let's have a look. So, yeah, and exactly the same thing has happened here. Very, very interesting. So you can see that wasn't a problem there, but my openings into the cavity are too small. So again, in the same way, maybe what I can do here is, if I'm very careful, I can pull this out without damaging this little divider, and therefore I will be able to open out, or I could recut this, couldn't I? I could recut this on the laser cutter, but I think in this case, if I can save the mold, I'm just going to get an X-Acto blade and just trim it back. So here we go. Can I do this successfully? Okay, it's quite firmly stuck. Is it because it's on the back there? Yeah, that might be why. Look, the pewter's just caught around the back. I think I've got it. If I can keep that little divider in place, that little spacer. This is proving to be a little bit more tricky. Okay, I think I'm going to pause the video here and just try and work this a little bit more carefully, and then we'll see where we are. So I've managed to remove the actual mold there. I'm just trying to separate the pewter here from this little spacer. So I'm going to get an X-Acto blade. Okay, so I've got an X-Acto blade. I'm just going to put some goggles on as well. I always wear goggles with X-Acto blades. I'm always worried about the blades breaking. I'm just going to push the blade out a little bit, just enough there for me to be able to use it, and then if that's a little bit more, so I can just try and separate out the pewter there. Can I just get that pushed in there? Yes. I can feel that go through there. Yeah, that's separated it. That's a little bit weakened, but I think it's going to be okay. When we sandwich that in the mold, I think we're going to be okay. Right, so what I'm going to do here is, let's just see if I can cut back this Z and make the openings a little wider. How am I going to do this? I've got a cutting mat underneath here. How does that look? That looks better there. Okay, so that looks quite good. I'm hoping that's going to work now. Okay, now let's have a look at this B. In the same way, I'm going to try and open it out right here. Back into the cutting mat. And I like that as well. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to see what happens. So I'm going to put these back together again, give it another casting, and in my CAD file here as well, let's have a see, I modified the B in the CAD file. So, instead of using the X-Acto blade there, just to be clear here, what I could do is also select this runner and basically try and open that out a bit more. I could just kind of push that in there, that node in, and that opens it out. So that was before and after, and you can see how that is going to open up that space there. So that's exactly what I've just done with the X-Acto blade on the actual molds here. I'll put them together, I'll cast them again, and we'll come back and see what they look like. So I've gone ahead and cast in Pewter the two molds that I modified by opening up the runner, flowing into the actual cavity where the letter is, using an X-Acto blade. So here we go. I'm going to open them up now and see if it worked. So remove the bulldog clips. And look, that's actually got stuck on there because some of the pewter flowed over the edge, but I should just be able to pull that off. And maybe I should get some thin nose pliers and pull that out as well. But right now I'm going to leave it there and concentrate on opening these molds. So let's have a look. This is the first one. Let's see what we get. Okay, very, very interesting. So this is the B, and it has worked better, but it hasn't flowed around into that corner. So I'm thinking here what I should have done is rotated the B even more to get it so it flowed into that corner. Interestingly, look, the risers here, and you can see how that risers allowed the pewter to flow around, but it hasn't allowed, but the pewter's set as it's worked around in this direction. So that's a bit of a disappointment. Maybe what I should have done is cast it in this direction here and had two flows of pewter coming in to each of the rounds here of the B. But let's see how the Z comes out. And the Z looks pretty cool. It hasn't quite formed all the way down into this corner here, which is interesting. And what I want to do here is just break this off the back mold, and by doing that, of course, where I'd glued on that little spacer, you see how it's just damaged the back with the backing plate, but that shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, it hasn't quite formed all the way down into that corner. There's a little gap there, but it's almost trivial, and I think that's air being trapped. So maybe what I should have done here is also had perhaps another riser over here. It's difficult because I can imagine as the pewter flows in, air would get caught down in that bottom corner. So it's not quite 100%, but I think this is fine. That obviously is no good and would have to be recast again. And really at this point now, I'd have to break the mold and start again. I couldn't reuse this mold. But what I do want to make sure I do here is I need to leave the metal in the mold because I still need to polish this, and you can see how from a previous project here I have polished there the D, and that Z just needs a bit of polishing to clean it up. Now, just as an addition to this, I went back to the other two molds that I did, which didn't have these wider risers. It only had the thin risers, and I thought to myself, maybe this MDF is causing the problem, because this MDF does seem to be a cooler material than the card, and it seems to, in my mind, perhaps act as a heat sink and draw some of the heat away, which causes the pewter to cool faster. So this may be a complete failure, but I thought I'd go ahead and just cast these and see if having both the front and the backing plate here in card and avoiding the use of MDF does make a difference. So here we go, and that's absolutely fascinating. So straight away, let's be clear here. This is this is the unmodified runner. So I did not widen this runner. This is a thin, skinny runner going into the cavity. I've got thin, skinny risers, and this has worked beautifully. And look, it's gone right down into that corner. Let's see if we have the same level of success here with the B. Here goes, moment of truth, and straight away the B has worked. So clearly the big problem here is the MDF being used as a backing plate. This simply draws away too much heat. It acts as a heat sink. The pewter cools down too quickly. Also, just notice here as well, I made a mistake on the B. With the Z, I poured, and you can see here with this little kind of puddle, I poured the pewter into the well, and you see the damage here to the pewter. That's what happens when you get excessive heating. But the Z itself is in good condition. If I have a look at the B, here I poured the pewter in the wrong side, and that's because my bulldog clips weren't adjusted correctly. And I realized as I was pouring I'd made the mistake, and as a result, look how this is all overheated, damaged pewter, and some of that may have gone into the B. Now, when I polish this up, we'll see what the results are, but just be aware of the results of not working with a well. Anyway, there you go. Very, very interesting results. I hope you found that useful. We need to make sure we avoid the MDF backing plates, and I think that's going to help the pewter flow a lot more easily. So, I hope you have success.